So over the last several months of me watching the anime, reading the manga, and writing videos analyzing the various aspects of what One Punch Man holds, One Punch Man has crossed the threshold to become my second favorite anime of all time, with Saitama becoming my second favorite anime protagonist of all time. This video will not contain manga spoilers. In fact, the reason why I was putting off this video was in part due to me wanting to talk about the circumstances up until this very latest episode of One Punch Man and the finale of Season 2. There is one very distinct picture I want to paint about who Saitama is and why he means so much to me, and I feel like this latest episode was the necessary piece in the puzzle for me to put this together. I was working on this video a little bit behind the scenes for the past several months since Season 2 started, because I've always loved Saitama, and it was only after really compiling everything I like about him, wrapping it up in one bow that fuses all of his character traits into one single core focus of who he is, and that is what I intend this video to be about. This is one of the biggest projects I've undertaken in regards to analyzing anime characters, which is the bread and butter of my channel, aside from the plethora of memes that seem to rear their head no matter the circumstance. So whammin' and gentle whammin', if you do like One Punch Man and you do like Saitama, I hope you do find enjoyment in this video, and maybe it will give you something to think about, even for a fleeting moment in regard to the series, other anime, as well as yourself, where you'll only realize why I'm saying everything that I'm saying at about 40 minutes in, where everything will click together into the grand picture of Saitama. I bring you the ultimate analysis of Saitama, the protagonist of One Punch Man. So, my experience with One Punch Man, watching it the first time around, I viewed it purely as a comedy series, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. The dynamic of Saitama being the most powerful being, as opposed to your average anime protagonist who was attempting to become that most powerful being, but now that he's become so strong, he finds pointlessness in his life, and now he's bored, and honestly, it's a hilarious dynamic that simultaneously is inherently funny, while also poking fun at literally every other battle trope shonen, and it's that type of meta humor that really hits me hard. Now, that said, viewing him as a depressed character and someone who has mega mental issues is easy. In fact, that's exactly the character that they're trying to get across. But after my second viewing of One Punch Man, I started realizing that everything that's viewed in a completely parody, gag, comedy way can also be seen as a very dry and witty humor, ironically being a metaphor to something in our everyday life, most present within One Punch Man being the psychology of different people in different scenarios. It's this sort of double meaning in every scene and in every joke character in One Punch Man that really got me to start loving the series more and more with every analysis I started making, and funnily enough, of course, everything ties into Saitama. I've made a video analyzing the greatness of the power system in One Punch Man, the greatness of the threat levels in One Punch Man, despite meaning absolutely nothing to someone like Saitama, who's infinitely stronger than any threat that they can come up with. I've even talked about many of the villains in length, like even the stupid crab dude in episode 1, or the mosquito in episode 2, or even characters like Goketsu, who Saitama killed off screen, and their importance to the entire story, as well as completely relative to Saitama on a flip side. This will be the greater Saitama video, however, all of those videos talk about different aspects of Saitama and how little he empathizes with the struggling of the world around him. Goketsu entering the tournament arc and started turning the martial artists into monsters. He was this massive event in their lives. And despite all of that and all the strife he brought with him to everyone who took place in that event, to Saitama he was so meaningless he even killed him off screen to signify that. But while I believe it was meant to signify this exactly, him killing Goketsu off screen is exactly the comedic punch I love from this series. Goketsu is this guy that was hyped by everyone. He's so powerful. Saitama's gonna go chase him down, and Suiryu's on the ground, missing teeth, saying, "No, even you will not have a chance against him," and then he kills him off screen. That's exactly the One Punch Man humor, but it also contains the vast, somber narrative of Saitama that even this character that everyone was hyping meant absolutely absolutely nothing to him. This is when Saitama actually started divulging his inner feelings to King for the first time, finally speaking his mind with another individual, and I've talked about why King is the ideal individual in my video on King. In a nutshell, just like Saitama is infinitely above every other hero, King is infinitely below every other hero, and they share some form of platitude to that degree. But also, from the comedic standpoint, how funny is it that the most powerful hero around is divulging his inner secrets to the guy with absolutely no power? I mean, with King and Saitama walking down the street, it almost looked like Saitama was King's stand or something. It didn't even feel real that this god-level being is talking to the weakest character in the series that honestly Moomin Rider would probably be able to defeat. Now, I say that with conjecture because Moomin Rider's Justice Crash can probably defeat most of the characters in the series, but you get my drift. What makes every scene funny is exactly what makes every scene so sad in regards to Saitama, and that is something I only picked up on the second viewing. I mentioned these as brief examples because they are dynamic in the actual story and very memorable, but every tiny bit of humor in regards to Saitama throughout the series has this double entendre of being funny for exactly the same reason why it is so sad. It's also important to note that all this humor does not come directly from him as much as it does in the given situation that is taking place. It is funny because of how we're perceiving it and how we're comparing him to the rest of the world, as well as a meta commentary on other shonen, but Saitama isn't actively trying to be funny in order to divert pain. That's a very common causality of humor. But no, none of that is present. None of the humor is directly emanating from Saitama himself. Saitama isn't trying to lift his own spirits with humor, the humor just surrounds him. Saitama's actually in a far worse state, as is shown in the series, and that is that Saitama does not even realize how much he's hurting. Until he actually speaks to King after the martial arts tournament in the second season, he's never actually verbalized this feeling of futility he's living in, and he doesn't realize the extent of the suffering he's going through due to the fact that he tells himself he's doing fine. Granted, he wants to fight a strong opponent, but hey, at least he could still go to the mall and buy food and kill the occasional monster, water his plants, and do other things to take his mind off life, which has now become a mundane, boring waste of time for him. He sees no purpose in it, and he sees no light at the end of the tunnel, but he convinces himself he's fine nonetheless. Through all the humor in One Punch Man, Saitama rarely revels in it. His dead-ass expression is a lot of what makes it funny, but it's not like he's standing there with his bored eyes and placid complexion to be funny. It's only funny because he's bored in contrast to everyone else who's working really hard. He's tired in contrast to everyone who's struggling for their lives. His humor is contrast, but not at all coming from himself. Saitama does not realize how much he's suffering. The reason why I'm trying to point all this out, and I'm trying to elaborate why every aspect in the show is attributed to this very central theme of Saitama's mindset in any given state, is because when people talk about tragic anime protagonists with tragic backstories or tragic lives in general, Saitama is not necessarily the one that they're gonna pick first. I mean, Naruto's parents were killed and he was ostracized by his village. Asta was looked down upon for having no magic and not being nobility. So on and so forth for every single anime character, how they all actually had a tragic life. Saitama didn't have any tragic backstory per se, he's just bored. And while that's completely and unequivocally true, this story hits so much harder for me, mostly because of how much I can relate to Saitama. No, not per se that I am a god-level warrior that can take down planets with a single fart, but because his suffering is on a so much more human level than any other protagonist. Yes, people do actually have tragic lives in this very world, and I feel terrible for every single one of those people, but Saitama's issue is something that plagues literally everyone no matter where they're from, and it affects every single status of human being in this world. Now, I'm no psychologist, and despite the amount of reading I've done on the subject, mostly for videos analyzing fictional characters, don't take everything I say as straight fact and applicable to you, because if you actually have mental issues, definitely seek help. It's not something to be embarrassed about, it's something prevalent in today's day and age. In fact, one of the leading theories to why it is so prevalent nowadays has a lot to do with the fact that life is easier. And even though that sort of seems counterintuitive, once playing through the steps, it makes a hell of a lot more sense. One of the known biggest causes for depression is a lack of accomplishment. A lack of accomplishment can mean any variety of things. It could mean you don't feel like people give you the respect you deserve, but it can just as well stem from you don't feel like you are doing anything of value for yourself. These things can obviously snowball and grow into some much larger issue, but I know a couple of years ago I've been there, and I kind of became a workaholic to counteract that, and now I work my asses off and I've never been happier. It may have issues coming from another direction, but we'll worry about that when that struggle arises. What I'm trying to say is, being that life is now easier than it ever has been in history of mankind, depression is rearing its ugly head in so many more ways. We don't have to go cultivate our crops and grind our own wheat to get food. There are so many ways society itself is built to give us a much easier, nicer, and cushier life. The idea of hours a day of free time is a very modern creation, and well, I'm freaking happy about it, but I can see why it undermines the human mind to some degree. Without people needing to work, people won't work, and by people not working, they don't feel accomplished and they end up feeling bad about themselves. This is a very prevalent theory to depression. It's not my own, of course. I'm not qualified to speak on the subject anything more than information that I've compiled from many various sources, but Saitama is someone that, despite the fact that he can defeat any monster ever, and he could defeat 1,000,000 monsters in one moment, something that no one else could do, that they look up to him for his awesomeness, he himself does not feel accomplished because he cannot derive passion from the one thing he wants to do. He is living a life where he can never fulfill himself, and that is an ultimate curse. No, it's not his entire clan being wiped out by his older brother, and no, it's not his entire race being wiped out by Space Capone Hitler. But on a much smaller, more human level, it is a tragedy, and a tragedy that he doesn't even realize is taking place at every moment. One of the most terrifying things about mental health problems altogether is the fact that it goes unnoticed. If someone's hand is chopped off, most people can say, "Hey, your hand is chopped off!" But if someone's suffering inside, that's invisible, and to a large extent, it's even invisible to the one that's currently suffering. Saitama understands he's bored, but he doesn't realize he's heading towards a path of self-destruction that he can never drag himself out of. This is the state of mind we have in Saitama in episode 1 of One Punch Man. Every time he does not struggle externally, he struggles internally. In episode 1, he has a dream where these subterranean monsters are fighting him, and they're actually putting up a fight, and he actually has to work hard to defeat them. And then he wakes up where that was just non-existent, killing his hopes for it to take place at a future time. Because with all these monsters popping up left and right, and where no one can deal with them because of how strong they are, Saitama's in a never-ending cycle of not hopelessness per se, but it's having hope, and having that hope get squashed to a level even beneath where he was initially, where he's slowly but surely net losing hope. Through every time hope arises, it gets extinguished instantly. This is the mental state of episode 1 Saitama, and this is the baseline that we're working with for the entirety of the series. Now, I specify when I say episode 1 Saitama because episode 2 is where we meet Genos. Now, Genos is the greatest waifu in all of One Punch Man, but aside from that, he plays a really pivotal role to Saitama. He's someone that recognizes Saitama for who he is and sticks by him. Despite being told no, he says yes. Saitama doesn't want to work himself by having a disciple always walking around following him, but he doesn't realize that's exactly what he needs most in his current state. He needs people. Corny as it may sound, the reason why One Punch Man is one of my favorite anime and manga is simply because, from Saitama's perspective, it is 100% a redemption story. Every redemption story has its ups and downs, has its moments where the hero fails and has to struggle to get back up again, and all of that is present in the mind of Saitama throughout One Punch Man. He originally makes friends with Genos, and he doesn't like it at first, but he gets to enjoy Genos' company to the point that in One Punch Man Season 2, Episode 11, he's worried when he heard Genos didn't get back yet, and he actually goes out to look for him, even though he's deluding himself into thinking, no, he's just gonna see if there's any monsters wandering around. He's not really worried about Genos, but he really is worried about Genos. He's grown to a state over these 2 seasons of anime where he cares about something. The one thing he did not have in episode 1 was the ability to care. He lived a futile life, and all of a sudden, sudden, something caused a reaction purely from an emotional level, not attempting to fight a strong opponent, but something that he would have never fathomed to take place before that. And every step of the way through the One Punch Man series, he is slowly but surely growing as a person. He is someone that doesn't realize that even though he's the strongest hero, he's not the best hero. King points that out to him in his discussion after the martial arts tournament, where he says to him, "Yo, Saitama, worry about being the best hero. Be more selfless and all that." But Saitama doesn't view that as heroism. He views heroism as strength, and therefore he is in a pit that he cannot climb out of. We see again and again that Saitama is a character that highly values the ideal of a hero. In fact, this has not been confirmed, but it is a very serious fan theory that it's because of him saving Butt Chin Kid in his flashback in episode 1 that eventually caused the entire Hero Association to occur. He is the ultimate hero. In everyone's flashbacks, he is the one that gives them inspiration and that saves them. Whether it's someone like King, who's an actual important character, or it's someone like Glasses Dude that got obliterated by Garo. Even he had Saitama flashbacks where Saitama inspired him to become a hero. Saitama's ideals, as well as his mindset, is completely in the right place on a moral level, and that's not what he has to work on at all. Because even though he feels like he knows all the answers to all the questions, he missed the single most important question of them all, and that is, what is the purpose to existing? He can lecture Suiryu in the ideal of becoming a hero, and he holds value in the fact that he is a hero, to the point that he even went to do the hero exam to become an official hero. He's a hero for fun, but he has an ideal of what a hero has to be, and he holds steadfastly on to that ideal. He thinks he has no room to grow, not on a physical level and not on an ideological one either. Everyone's so used to viewing stories from a power level perspective. I mean, in order for all your favorite shonen protagonists to become what they're aiming and dreaming to become, they have to grow on that wavelength. Naruto has to become stronger, Deku has to become stronger, Asta has to become stronger, Ichigo has to become stronger, Luffy has to become stronger, Goku has to become stronger, literally everyone has to become stronger to reach their dreams. That is conventional storytelling, but for Saitama, his growth does not depend on that, but it is a story about his growth nonetheless. Most stories with a character like this has a set mental state throughout, and that's why he inspires others around him. Naruto has an ideal mental state, just like Asta and Deku and every other protagonist that wants to accomplish their dreams. Not to say that these characters don't develop, but the core mindset remains largely the same. Now, this obviously doesn't apply to everyone. Like, there are characters in Seven Deadly Sins that exhibit massive mental changes that are far more important than the physical ones. However, they are striving for growth the entire time. Saitama is looking at the same exact picture that all of us are, where we're calculating how strong the shonen protagonist is compared to the rest of the world. In order for Luffy to become the Pirate King, he has to grow in strength to be more powerful than the warlords and then more powerful than the emperors, until he could reach that level of strength that his ideals can then spread forth from his own empire and unite the world under his sovereignty. That's not how we should be looking at One Punch Man, but that is how Saitama is looking at One Punch Man. He also views it all as gauges of strength, and he doesn't realize that he has to grow on that mental level that no other shonen protagonist really exhibits. Saitama needs the same exact amount of growth as everyone else, but in such a non-conventional way, One Punch Man became a parody manga, and that's the only way that that was able to be expressed. Now, don't think that One Punch Man forgot about conventional growth storytelling. No, we see that in Garo, the antagonist of this series. Well, I think he's the protagonist, but that's not the point. And I made a whole video on Garo. You should definitely check it out. It's a pretty dope video if I do say so myself. But as far as conventional storytelling, that's not where Saitama falls on the spectrum of main characters. For the most part, overpowered characters fail because, hey, they're already so powerful. They've already surpassed those goals that they've set for themselves from moment one. How can a protagonist start off overpowered? But once again, using this perspective on growth that I've just been talking about, if you view physical power as the direction the main character has to grow, well then being overpowered means this character can defeat any opponent in one punch. By conventional standards, Saitama is overpowered, but since his character journey is on a mental level, he is the most god-tier overpowered character by conventional standards, but he is your shonen underdog on his own path to redemption. Now, I understand this was an abnormally long way to say this, but I wanted to hit every single point to fully cover the perspective we need to have of Saitama for the entire entirety of the series, and once looking at it in this way, the whole story says something different and something darker. The beauty of One Punch Man is the toggling between the two perspectives. If you look at it through a perspective that we view every other anime ever, it's a hilarious comedy. And if you view it through the perspective I just outlined, it becomes the most emotional of stories, and it turns Saitama from a god to a tragic man. So before working on the actual character analysis of the man, we must realize he is one, just like every single one of us. That's why Saitama is the most relatable god in anime. The detail in Saitama's life that eventually led him towards the path of becoming a hero is when he was about 20, he was walking down the road, once again not getting into wherever he was interviewing for. I believe it was some job of sorts, and he bumps into Crablante. Big fat crab monster with nipples drawn onto his shell thingy, a brilliant One Punch Man villain. Now, Crablante looks at him and says, "I will spare your life because you have the very same dead eyes as I do." And Saitama treated that as a kick in the pants, and he decided, nope, he's gonna grab his dreams by the balls. He's gonna become a hero, the strongest there ever was. To catch them is his real test, and to train them is his cause. So he fought Crablante, defeated him, and went on his incredibly difficult training routine, including a couple of squats and push-ups and stuff. Blammo! He can destroy a planet in a punch. I bring this up because this is a guy who seems to have failed at life. I mean, he's in his 20s, he's unemployed, he's not happy with himself, he's getting turned down left and right for wherever he's applying to, and he is someone without a future. He is someone who already has the background of someone who does not consider themselves to be of worth. Now, he actually does get happy, and he does obtain this feeling of self-worth, and he does that through becoming a hero. He has a dream, no matter how unrealistic it is, and he grabs it. Once again, following the route of every shonen protagonist, grabbing these dreams no matter how impossible they seem. Now, Saitama takes all of this a step further, because once his dream is reached, what then? Saitama's ideal of a hero is just to become the strongest, but once reaching that point, what then? He is in the exact same state once he becomes One Punch Man as he is before fighting Crablante altogether. He is someone who sees futility in himself, and he sees no purpose in existing. Not because he can't make a difference, but because nothing makes a difference to him. This is the character development he's gone through, and no matter how much he's changed and transformed himself, he cannot find happiness through it. He cannot find a value in his existing. He's already prone to this feeling of futility based on his backstory as the 20-year-old unemployed dude with the dead fish eyes. And after having that quick spike, that adrenaline boost where he actually was happy for 3 years, he ended up falling back into that same well of depression, except this time he doesn't even have a dream. I'm big into the anime ideal of grab your dreams. That's probably one of the most prevalent themes in anime altogether. Unfortunately, dreams by definition are distant from you and potentially intangible. However, they are something that's worth chasing nonetheless. Saitama's burnt by his own chasing of his dreams, and that's because he did it wrong. As King told him, "Saitama, you're already the strongest hero, but why not try to become the best hero?" And it was a statement that couldn't even compute to him. That is the shonen trope of following your dreams, except from a far more realistic perspective. And when I say realistic, of course it comes with a side dish of humor like everything else served in One Punch Man. The humor is, the guy has an outlandish dream, and the journey isn't trying to get to that dream. The journey is, now that the dream is realized, now what? He reached such an insurmountable height without putting in nearly the amount of effort anyone else would to reach his level. It's spat on the whole shonen formula of chasing your dreams, where the actual chase is not nearly as important as what's to come afterwards. And honestly, that's a far more human look at the ideal of chasing dreams. Every protagonist chases their dreams. Even someone like Garou, a villain in One Punch Man, and I don't want to get into the argument if he's a villain or an anti-hero or anti-villain. Not the discussion here, fam. But he's a guy who chases his dreams too, except he's fulfilled because we're following his actual chase, not once he actually reaches them. While with Saitama, it's just the opposite. To focus on Saitama, Saitama here and not Garo, that's simply because in the philosophy that One Punch Man is trying to push, everyone needs to chase their dreams in order to obtain this quintessential happiness and this quintessential fulfillment that would do well for everyone to harbor. The lack of accomplishment that Saitama feels as a hero is the same with a twist as the lack of accomplishment Saitama felt before becoming a hero. The hardest part in chasing your dreams is making up your mind to chase your dreams. The actual journey there, well, that lifts your spirits. That is the true moment of happiness. So to put it into layman's terms, the quest to accomplish your goal is the goal. That is what saves someone from this feeling of futility. So the journey is the end goal more than the actual end goal of the journey. The end goal of the journey is just the beginning of the next one. But that is where Saitama failed. You find ultimate joy in feeling proud of who you are. And Saitama does not feel that way before the journey starts or after the journey ends. The hardest part, and arguably the most important part, is the decision to go forward in your dreams. No matter how impossible the dream might seem, deciding to take the jump is much harder than the actual jump. That is a really powerful message that One Punch Man is trying to convey here. And now that Saitama's actually reached that dream, he viewed that as the grand finale for what he was aiming for. So for him, the next step would just be fighting a stronger opponent, but he doesn't realize that this is the beginning of a much more important adventure. An adventure that starts with him meeting Genos in episode 2 of One Punch Man, a path to redemption. The story of Saitama mirrors the typical shonen story on a psychological level, and one of the most important things that he has to him is the power of friendship. Saitama's a guy with ultimate power, and despite all of that, he still holds on to his ideals. And because of this, he remains a hero for fun, even though he doesn't have fun being the hero, negating the actual purpose of him becoming the hero. That said and done, he does not discard it to join the dark side of the Force. Saitama is a genuinely good guy. Now, meeting Genos, getting a disciple, he's actually giving something to someone. He is actually accomplishing more in his giving to Genos in regard to himself than he is by taking out no matter how many monsters decide to show up. Even though he's technically giving the world on a much more personal level, that doesn't mean all that much to him. But as time goes on and more people learn who he is, they're all drawn to him. They're drawn to him by a fusion of his power and his ideals. He is a humble dude because the thing that every hero seems to seek for one reason or another, being power, is something that's not even on his radar of goals anymore. So it's a fusion of his humility, his ideals, and his power that draws people towards him. And these people are people that eventually bond with him, that he makes friends with, and that change him. Whether it's Genos, who he starts to actually visibly care about, like we saw 2 episodes ago in One Punch Man, whether it's King, someone he can have a great time playing video games with, giving him a rival on some level, King being the only one that he can actually speak his mind to, whether it's Fubuki, who's pining for his attention for one reason or another, whether it's Bang and Bomb, who respect him for who he is and appreciate his presence, or whether it's every other hero he's interacted with along the way. Suiryu isn't a friend, but Suiryu is someone that he took upon himself to change. He got upset when Suiryu started making fun of the ideals of a hero, and that's when he let his wig get blown off in the tournament. He inspired Glasses Guy, even though it was no skin off his back, and he even to some degree bonded with Moomin Rider. Moomin Rider was someone he originally chilled with when the Deep Sea King thing was going on. Moomin Rider fought him, used Justice Crash, one of the most powerful attacks in anime, but still the Sea King managed to survive. Probably plot armor on the Sea King's part. I don't see how he would have stood up to Justice Crash otherwise. But then after that, Saitama caught Moomin Rider before he fell to the ground, clearly showing his empathy for another person. But not only that, he then praised Moomin Rider for doing a good job. It may seem pointless, but it was not necessary, and he genuinely respected Moomin Rider for what he was trying to do, even though in Saitama's eyes, it's like they were having a sword fight with Q-tips. Caring about Genos being okay, that shows his empathy. Arguing with Suiryu about what it means to be a hero, that shows his ideology. And after fighting Lord Boros at the end of season 1, and Boros was lying there looking like a deflated testicle on the floor, Saitama said to him, "Wow, you were tough. You were genuinely a hard fight." And Boros said, "You're lying to make me feel better before I die. I didn't stand a chance against you." And Saitama said, "Yes, that is true." Saitama was trying to make Boros, an evil alien overlord coming to wipe out humanity, feel better on his deathbed. Not only is that compassion compassionate in a strange way, but he didn't mind taking the hit as far as saying, "You were nearly as strong as I was. This truly was a wonderful fight." He was lying to his detriment, and that lie is ultimate humility, showing how he isn't nearly as great as you think he is. He has all the traits of a really good guy, and despite all of that, he sees himself as someone with no future. Almost every story is the story of someone who becomes great. The story is the adventure, but the adventure is genuinely the easy part. The hard part is starting the adventure, and the even harder part is what to do after that adventure so-called ends. These are the 2 points in Saitama's life that we get a glimpse in. The actual training regimen isn't even canon. But since Saitama's story mirrors the shonen protagonist, instead of having a scenario where the main character, due to his friends believing in him, will get stronger in a certain fight and win, you get a complete flip for the One Punch Man perspective of everything. Due to the friends around him that support him and care about him, he is going to get stronger in his personal journey, his mental journey. The power of friendship will help him want to live. But if you look at where Saitama's standing now, he doesn't even want per se to make friends. He is in a state of borderline denial. He wants to be left alone. The only person he actually enjoys spending time with is King, and I've talked about that more in length in my video on King. But that's because Saitama doesn't want to make the jump. He doesn't know that that is where he needs to go, and that's where the problem lies. Saitama's next journey is forming genuine bonds with people he cares about, and that will give him the fulfillment he needs, as we actually see he is evolving throughout. That said, he's in the same state as he was with his dead fish eyes as a 20-year-old unemployed guy flopping job interviews. He's someone who did not see a future, and he was someone who felt useless. He only escaped from his mental coffin when he took the leap following his dreams to become a hero, and at this point, he will only escape fully from his mental quandary when he takes the leap out of his comfort zone of living alone. I understand it doesn't sound nearly as massive and climactic as what you're looking for in so many other places, but it really hits home. Opening up to other people is a personal struggle I've had for a very long time, and I have had issues in the past when it came to lack of accomplishment and feeling useless. Opening up to people and chasing dreams are both extremely important, and they are exactly the 2 hurdles Saitama had to overcome in order to reach a state of sublimity. And throughout the series, he is clearly growing. When he fought Elder Centipede at the end of season 2, he used a serious punch to defeat him, and fam, he only did that because King asked him to please protect him. He did not need to use a serious punch. I know that because of the future fights in the manga, where he takes down creatures of incredible might, way stronger than Elder Centipede with a normal punch. And I will not spoil, but that's the truth. That fight in the manga where he uses a normal punch is where he gets aggravated that his opponent is praising himself too much. So he says, "I don't even need to be serious to defeat you. All your self-praises amount to nothing in regards to me." And they did. A normal punch was more than enough. But in regards to Saitama helping out his friend King, well then, he has to actually exert effort and use a serious punch, because he's starting to really feel and really care. Things are starting to matter for him, and it's beautiful to see him evolve. If you look earlier in the series, for example, he was fighting Carnage Kabuto, and in the middle of the fight, Kabuto's in rage mode, and in the middle he realizes that there's a sale in the grocery store that he doesn't want to miss, so he freaks out, annihilates Carnage Kabuto, and then goes to the grocery store. Now, as always, the humor completely contrasts the serious and somber nature of the show. This is funny because Carnage Kabuto annihilating Genos a minute beforehand, and now going into even super duper Saiyan Carnage Kabuto mode still means so little to him compared to the fact that he's gonna miss a sale in the supermarket. That is hilarious, just to show how little Carnage Kabuto means to him. But it's also so sad because you realize how little Carnage Kabuto meant to him. He doesn't have any more enjoyment or excitement about a grocery store going on sale than any of us. That just goes to show the massive contrast between how stimulating his fight with Carnage Kabuto was. Or in episode 1, where the giant dude is wiping out the entire city and he's buying food in the grocery store. He's looking through his coin pouch, looking for the right amount of change. Meanwhile, buildings are flying, explosions are happening, the world is in trouble, and he doesn't even notice. It's just a nuisance to him that everyone in the store had to run away and he didn't get to buy his food. He was completely oblivious to the fact that destruction was happening all around him, and that simply stems from a lack of caring. It means so little to him, it was less pressing than than finding the right amount of change in his coin pouch. But he is changing. He is caring about others. In the martial arts tournament, after he finished that whole thing and he realized that the Monster Association is attacking outside and there's destruction everywhere, he felt terrible about himself that he wasted time in this stupid martial arts thing where there was heroing that needed to be done. Unlike in the beginning, when he was oblivious to Giant Dude destroying the city around him, he didn't feel bad about himself that he did. He merely defeated him like you would defeat any other opponent and went back to his daily life. The evolution that he's having by meeting all these people and having all these people that rely on him is he was kicking himself after the martial arts tournament that he wasn't present to help people. His ideals were always there. If he would have noticed Giant Dude, he would have defeated Giant Dude, stopped some destruction or whatever. But even though the destruction happened, that didn't mean he felt bad that he didn't notice earlier. In season 2, though, he did. I can give examples throughout that the people he's meeting change him, and in fact, even his very conversations and the structure of the way he speaks to other people changes as the anime progresses. The power of friendship is actually helping him. He doesn't realize that the people he's trying to run away from and get his alone time from are the people that are actually helping him. And this is really important from two directions. On the one hand, even though it's easier to be alone and to wallow in self-absorption, make friends. Have people you can trust and have people you could talk to. Open yourself up to people, and that is the salvation, even though it's something that you do not want to do. But the burden lies on the friends as well. The influence from the friends, even an unwanted influence, is crucial, and that's shown by all the different people that are imposing themselves onto Saitama. Except for King, who Saitama willingly wants to play with because no one else can understand Saitama like King can. Just like Saitama's infinitely stronger than all the heroes, King is infinitely weaker, and through their drastic opposites in nature, they find a solace together. People have asked me very frequently, how do I want One Punch Man to end? Do I want Saitama to actually find an opponent that's a big fight for him so he can finally be satisfied when he actually wins? Or do I think that in this big massive final fight, he will lose? Now, I think it's none of the two, and while I have so much faith in one, it'll be amazing, I hope it's neither of the two. But my example for a potential ending of One Punch Man would be Blast, the rank 1 hero that hasn't shown up in the story or the webcomic as far as I know, finally returns. And yes, he is a hero after all. No epic supervillain, not secretly trying to destroy the universe. He's just a slightly lazy, heroic dude doing acts of justice and stuff, except he is so powerful he's potentially the only one that will pose a threat to Saitama. He may be the only opponent Saitama can actually enjoy fighting, but he is a hero. That is going to be the ultimate decision for Saitama. Saitama wants a challenge, but at what cost? Does his drive for a challenge overpower his heroic ideals, or vice versa? Now, for Saitama, someone who's living with the hope and dream to eventually feel that thrill, the ultimate challenge for him to overcome is for him to not fight Blast. For him to have faith in his friends, to enjoy the company of his friends, and to be willing to open himself to his friends. For him to realize that he's going to be the best hero for fun, not the strongest hero for fun per se, and he'll be satisfied without fighting this potentially stronger opponent. That will be overcoming the biggest hurdle for him, because it's not like strength is where we're exactly watching Saitama grow. Being an overpowered protagonist in general is a problem, because there is no room for growth. But the reason why that doesn't affect Saitama's narrative at all is because he's not overpowered in the wavelength that he is aspiring to grow. So I'm really glad that I managed to say everything that I've said until this point, because I think I've solidly given the impression that despite all the amazing humor in One Punch Man, there are some really dark themes. So now, prepare for the ultimate finale of this video that I've been working on behind the scenes for far too long, and I'm afraid the length of this video may have destroyed the coherency, but that's not the point anymore. No going back, fam. The finale of this video is to say that, yes, the funny parts are the highest of highs, and yes, the sad parts are the lowest of lows. But the story of One Punch Man, in my personal opinion, and this is really the reason why it hits so hard for me, is despite all the metaphorical narrative depressing bullschnizzle, One Punch Man is an optimistic, positive series, and this is why it is amazing. freaking getting chills. This is ridiculous. Saitama's a character who felt worthless and felt like nothing. He couldn't get a job. He was in his 20s. He had no one he particularly cared about, and he felt like poo. But you know what? He had a dream. He envisioned himself becoming something great. He jumped and grabbed life by the balls and became that great thing that he envisioned. He climbed to a level higher than he could have ever thought possible because he believed in himself and he believed he could do it. He set himself a goal, an impossible goal, and he cleared it with flying colors. He became the strongest hero because that was his dream. An impossible dream, but a dream he accomplished nonetheless because he believed in himself, he worked really hard, he was passionate about what he was doing, and he was doing it for the right reasons. The combination of these four things created One Punch Man the ultimate hero, and it gets better. Once he becomes One Punch Man, he accomplishes everything there is and there's nothing left for him to do. The ultimate feeling of futility. Can you imagine existing where you have no purpose to exist? No reason to wake up the next day? That is tragic, and it befalls far too many people, unfortunately, especially in this day and age. But you know what? Saitama's gonna hold true to what he believes, even though he's unhappy doing it, and because of the people around him, because of the people he cares about and grows to care about more and more and more, his friends stick to him like a tumor. Probably not the greatest metaphor of all time, but it doesn't matter. Because of these people that care about him and that he in turn gives to, creates this bond between the two of them and gives him a purpose to live vicariously through someone else. Through giving other people, whether it's time, whether it's attention, whether it's help, whether it's trust, and whether it's friendship, he's not merely giving them something that they can now use to better themselves, but he's building himself. That is the essence of accomplishment. It's the opposite of futility. If he can give, then that means he can always give more. Yes, he can defeat a monster in one punch, no matter the monster, and fighting monsters is no longer something that he can feel happiness from. He's reached and plateaued at that high level. But you know where he didn't reach a limit? A limit to the amount of love he can give to the people around him and the amount of love he can receive. One Punch Man, through all the somber themes and through all the humor based on a sad irony, is an upbeat, happy show about the power of friendship, and it is literally hidden in plain sight in every metaphor and every theme throughout the series. I made a video analyzing the philosophy of the mosquito scene and how it contrasts Mosquito Woman, who uses all the mosquitoes for her bidding and eventually wipes out all those mosquitoes because she no longer needs them, being a blood-sucking bitch, figuratively and literally. And this is exactly the scene where Saitama and Genos become friends, as a far more symbiotic relationship where they're helping each other, not purely using them to discard their empty carcasses. That scene against Mosquito Woman, again, you should watch my mosquito video if you want more in-depth, is an essential philosophical argument about what friendship needs to be based on and why Mosquito Woman's will fail while Saitama's will flourish. It's this two-step process that One Punch Man has in Saitama's very character that makes Saitama so special. No matter the predicament he's in, no matter how bad he feels and how terribly he feels about himself, he will take that leap towards his dreams. No matter how improbable it may seem, he can and will do it. And no matter how alone, isolated, and useless he feels, because of people around him that grow to care about him for himself, not purely for his strength, will pull him out of that and make him a far stronger person in the end of the day. I was talking to someone about One Punch Man, and they were telling me how Saitama's condition is worsening. How after the tournament, when he was talking to King, he was telling King how his life has no meaning. They were saying how Saitama is slowly but surely creeping deeper and deeper into depression. But what's even more important is that finally Saitama's honest to himself. Until this point, Saitama was lying to himself that everything was okay. He just needs to find a better opponent. Now he's finally realizing that no, not everything is okay. And what does he do when he realizes this problem? He doesn't bottle it up to himself. He doesn't just go to sleep and hope to wake up and find a monster that would challenge him. He tells King he's confiding in a friend. He is opening up to someone else. This is ultimate growth, and it is a mental condition that I don't want to say a majority of people find themselves in, at least to some degree, but I genuinely believe that to be the case. The mind of Saitama is the recipe of this entire generation, and the narrative of Saitama is the redemption. Whammon and gentle whammon, this is why Saitama is my second or third favorite protagonist of all time, and why One Punch Man is my second favorite anime of all time. Believe in yourself and grab your dreams by the balls, and also believe in the people that care about you, because no matter how you feel, people do care about you. You are not alone. Saitama has inspired me in more ways than one, and I am really glad that I actually got the chance to make this video and talk about why, despite all of the really dark and sad stuff, One Punch Man is a happy show in general, and not meant to depress you. It's meant to get you out of that dark hole. No matter how strange you are and how weird your ambitions can be, you gotta be yourself and follow your own dream. And again, no matter how strange you are, you gotta have people that appreciate you for your very own weirdness, not for this fake persona that so many people clothe themselves in. In essence, what I'm trying to say is, please like the video if you enjoyed, please subscribe for future anime analysis or satire content, but most importantly, remember to stay weird, fam.